pieces, fragments of metal. Hello, my name is Flipper and welcome to my garage. On today's episode, we're going to work on getting the rear suspension finished up and then start working our way forward on this car. Want to get the engine ready to go in, get the transmission bolted up to it. We're going to start working on some of the body work on the car, get the decking on top of it done, some of the side panels. I say that with a bit of an asterisk. I have, just like the interior tin, I've never done this before, so I'm really just kind of winging it, and here's hoping. But hey, I'm excited about it. It's going to be a fun challenge. While you were gone, did some finishing touches on the fuel cell. I also fabricated the seat mounts, finished the assembly on the interior tin. We'll show you that here. Well, as you can see, the interior tin is in the car, finished assembly, got the shifter put back in it, working on the dash right now. Like I said, I did get the seat mounts fabricated. Not going to have the seat in just yet. I want to get the belts and everything ready. I want to make sure I get the dash done, all the electrical done, and all the other internal stuff in here done before I final assembly with the seat and the mounts and everything, just so I don't have to constantly work around it, crawl over it. We are updating the rear end on this car. And this is one of the old lower mounts. This would clamp onto the axle tube. This little bolt right here would locate it and keep it from moving. And then your lower mount would hook on here and then hook on to your chassis right here by this clamp. You can kind of see that. And it's a clamp, so it's adjustable up and down to change your control arm angles. We're updating it to this. That looks like this outside of the car. And what it is, it's a center pole control arm mount with this nylon bushing here. What that does is, where this is completely stationary, you know, it can't move, this can actually rotate. And that allows you to run your third link uphill along with your lower control arms uphill. So when you accelerate, it's going to want to lift the back end of the car, which is going to plant the tires down, which creates more traction. In addition to that, you can run your spring mounts, which is what this is connected to down here, in front of the axle. That allows this axle to rotate slightly, and the springs absorb some of the impact under acceleration, meaning you don't spin your tires. At least that's my understanding of it. I could be totally off. If I am, please, by all means, let me know. Write it down in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. I'll be honest, it's pretty much just witchcraft to me. But hey, we're going to make it work. Well, sit rep, we have the little magical center pole traction doohickeys installed, and I've run into a bit of an unforeseen problem. Here, I'll show you what I'm talking about. As you can see, we got the new setup on, and we got the two lock collars on either side of it that keep it from going side to side. This is going to rotate freely on the axle. Now, typically, this lower control arm is mounted like way down here below the axle. And you normally want to run this a little bit uphill to the chassis right here. But because we moved this up so far, we have to move the front of it up so far. And we're running into this curve on the bar, and we're still not getting the angle that we need. So I got to cut this out, make a new mount for this to clamp onto. Got the old bar cut out and got it all cleaned up. Used one of these little flapper disc thingies. Highly recommend one of these. Work great. Took some measurements before I cut it out. So we're going to make another bar, and I'm thinking I'm just going to bring it straight up, bring a piece across here, and then we'll kind of triangle that back into somewhere back in here maybe, or I might pull it forward. We'll see. We got our piece chucked up here in the bandsaw, and if that color looks familiar, that's because that particular chunk of tubing came off of Crackers, the white car. Make sure we got this tightened down. Already got it measured, so we'll get this cut, clean that up, and get it on the car. We have our bar welded on. I only hit my head on that about 11 billion times. Just need to paint this, then we can hook up the thingamajig to the doohickey here. Or wait a minute, that's the doohickey, this is the thingamajig. Either way, we got to hook that back up once this is all painted and dried up, and then done. Originally, I had planned on, after this rear end was buttoned up, jumping and moving to the engine and transmission. Unfortunately, as has been the case with this car, that's not gonna work quite as I planned. Now, next on my list was gonna be to get this and that, well, actually get that put on this and then get those in there. The problem is, with this, that right there. I've cleaned that spot up several times. It keeps coming back. And where it's coming from is this little, I don't know if it's a torch and coat hanger weld job here on the oil pan or what, but yeah. We got a bleeder. So I got a brand new oil pan ordered. I'm going to try to patch this up and fix it so I can keep this as a backup, but I really don't want to start off trusting that that won't continue to happen or get worse. So I got a new oil pan coming. I also was able to go through and clean off the exhaust ports and check those. I've got some new exhaust gaskets, actual gaskets coming. And for those of you who didn't tune in on one of the earlier episodes, when we pulled this engine out, the previous owner, for reasons known only to him and the Lord God Almighty, thought it would be an awesome idea to not use gaskets at all and instead used red RTV stuff on there. I don't know. I don't know. I've got nothing. I also have some new spark plugs coming. These are some AC Delcos. I'm going to replace them with the NGK equivalent. I've had kind of mixed success with the AC Delcos. NGKs I've always had really good luck with, so I'm going to swap those out once they come in. So the engine is, well, it's on hold until we get some parts in. Like I said, stuff's ordered, so it'll be here when it gets here. That leaves us with this. All of this. I think we're going to try to tackle some body work, which is really awesome. Because, hang on a second here. There we go. You see, when I ran big cars, the bodies we ran were fiberglass. They were flange fit. They required very little, next to no, sheet metal work, fabrication and stuff like this. This whole thing is all custom. I mean, I could pay someone, but I'm too cheap. We're doing this on a budget. Plus, if I'm honest, the challenge of it sounds like fun. So we're going to try to build our own body. We'll see how that goes. You might be wondering what's with the string we got going on here. And the reason for that is it's a visual reference point for me. It also gives me an actual location to measure from my sheet metal. And you can see how the back end kicks out and then comes back in. Reason for that being is the rule book only allows for 4 inches from the edge of your front windshield to the edge of your decking, or I guess it's called a ledge. So after taking some measurements with the roof and the windshield and everything, I really had to bring this in to try to get it within that 4-inch tolerance. Now I can kick it out after the windshield, as you can see here, but then I'm only allowed, our total width on the car is 84 inches. I'm only allowed 72 inches back here at the spoiler, so I had to bring it back in. So again, I've got these strings laid out to help give me some visual reference points. Probably wondering why I have one in the center here, and that's because this is going to be 2 pieces. Why not just make it 1 piece? Well, I'm going to bring the piece over and then bend it down at a 90, and this piece over and bend it down at a 90. And then I can rivet them together all along there. That's going to make this really rigid and give it a lot of strength without adding a bunch of weight. And then all of our strength going this way is going to be from these supports that I've got already out throughout the car. And as you can see, we're doing the same thing on the left side as well. So I'm going to grab some measurements. I'm going to get this on the ground at ride height, and we'll get to it. the last video, I bent up the interior sheet metal on the late model, and some of you might have noticed it was a little kind of jerky and jumpy, and continuity wasn't quite the best. And well, if I'm being honest, may or may not have allegedly, accidentally, deleted a large quantity of videos showing you what all was happened, supposedly. And after that video, some of you reached out to me and wanted to see how I did the bendy sheet metal-y type stuff. So that's why we're here at the top secret sheet metal facility located just south of Grand Rapids off of 131 and 36th Street, right across the street from the Sicko. So I figure I'm going to show you folks how I bend up this. This is the side skirt for the late model. It's got a, I don't know, can you see that? Nice little profile to it. Gives it a little flair. Not like Ric Flair. Woo! So I'll show you how I do it. Alright, so the first thing you need to do is get your measurements. So I already have these jotted down. I kind of wrote it down the first time around when I made this piece. But for the sake of this, I'll show you folks. So I got 3/4 of an inch here. And this is a hem. This is where it's folded back on top of itself. You can kind of see it right there. That doubles up the strength in the area. Makes it real rigid and stiff. I also have one at the very top here. And then I've got 1 inch here. I've got 1.5 inches here. And 4 inches there. My hems are 3/4 and 3/4. So I'm going to take and I'm going to write that down on this piece. We'll do that right here. So 3/4 of an inch, and I'm going to put a little H for hem. And then we'll go our 1 inch mark, and I'm going to put bend. And then 1.5 inches will put me right here, and that's going to be away. And the reason I'm putting away on it is because you bend in the direction that the sheet metal faces. This bends opposite of the way this is sitting down. So I have to bend this little beauty bend on the face of the material. I'll have to mark it, flip it over, mark it on the other side. So I got that. Then I'm going to do my 4-inch mark, which will put me right here. And I'm just, for the sake of making it easy, moving the tape measure to line up even inches. And then I got another 3/4 inch hem right here, and that's where I'm going to cut the material. I like to put 2 little dash marks just so I know that that's a cut line. And then I'll put an H here for hem. Go do it on the other side, and then we'll be ready to load it in the brake. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to trim our piece to size. So I'm going to line it up on my little hash mark, guys, on both ends. I already got that end lined up. We'll just double check. And we're off. Here we go. Both ends lined up. Now this is the part where a lot of people overcomplicate it. They got specialty tools that are going to cut all this, or they think they need a big shear or something like that. Razor knife. That's all you need. So you're going to start from the outside, work in to the center, do it on the other side, come back, and you're just scoring the material. You don't have to cut all the way through it, just score it. A couple strokes on each side, and I'll show you. And the reason you go from the outside in is so you don't tear up the face of your brake. Trust me, nobody likes that. All of a sudden you got a bunch of scratched up material, job foreman's yelling at you, customer's not happy. And we'll come back from this one. See, just a couple scores, and then we're going to bend it. And what we did is we created a weak point in the metal, and once you bend it, flatten it out, we'll bend it back, and this thing's just going to snap right off. Probably one more bend. just like that. So now we're going to line up our hem. That'll be next. And sometimes you have to sit and think about the order what you're going to bend. If I bend it one way, is it going to get in the way of the brake when I go to bend the next? So there's my 3/4 inch. Double check the other side. For a hem, we're going to go all the way, bend it as far as the machine will let you. Like so. We're actually going to pull the material out. Put it right on top. Close the brake. Just set right down on the hinge. And we're going to squeeze it together with the brake. Just like so. And that's going to create that nice doubled up edge. That's where we're going to get a lot of extra strength. See right there? Now we got to do it on the other side. And then we could start with our beauty bends, the stuff that's decorative. This is more structural. So if you look right here, this is actually bent. If I hold that to where it's like straight up and down, you can see it's bent past 90. That's to compensate for this bend kicking it away. Ultimately, it's kind of a math thing. You have to equal 90 degrees to get it right. So if I bend 30 degrees here, I have to go 30 degrees beyond 90, which is 120 to get this flat, and 90 degrees with this piece. Makes sense? So 90 degrees to this piece, not this little kick out. Yeah, almost confused myself. So this first bend we're going to go to 120 degrees. Line up my marks. And in case you're wondering, yes, this big counterweight here, I have caught myself on it several times. Feels fantastic. And right about here is my 120. You go a little bit past because there's a little bit of memory in the metal. Now, remember, you bend toward the way you're facing. So to get this bend, I have to face it this way. To get this decorative little kick out guy, I have to flip the material around and now bend shiny side up. Flip that around. Double check. Good there. Good enough for the girls I go with. And now we're going to take it to about that 30-degree mark. And you know you're right because this piece will be straight up and down. The piece we first bent will be straight up and down with the ground. That's how we do our side skirts. Well, now that we have most of the sheet metal work done, good news, engine parts have arrived. So we're going to drain the oil out of this thing. When I drain the oil, I'm going to put a magnet on the bottom side of the oil pan right where it drains out, just in case there's any metal shavings. It should grab them, and I got a pretty early indication that there's something going on inside the engine. Not too terribly worried. This engine supposedly has about 150 laps on it since its complete rebuild, and the oil on it should only have about 15 laps on it. So that should come out looking pretty good, pretty clean. And then once that's out, it's going to be new oil pan. We got to pull the power steering pump off the front of the car. If you remember my last video, the rear end of the car is actually where the power steering pump is located on this car. So we don't need it up here. We'll get that off. Then it's going to be spark plugs. And then we got to do the rockers, get those put back on, set lash, new valve cover gaskets, and it should be ready. Bolt the transmission on and drop it in the car. So like I said, this really only has about 15 laps on it, and if it'll focus here, actually it doesn't look too bad. This is Champion racing oil. It's got that bluish tint to it naturally. So it doesn't look too dirty and doesn't feel real gritty. So that's good. So maybe we might get lucky and not have to tear too far into this engine. And it looks like it's just about stopped, so let's take a look at our magnet. That is fantastic. There's absolutely nothing on it. And you might be wondering why I'm worrying. I didn't have any real issues with the engine, other than a little bit of blow-by. And why am I so concerned? Well, between RTV for the gaskets, for the exhaust, and everything else I found on the car that this came out of, I had lots of reason to worry. And I'm still not out of the woods yet. We'll see what we got when we flip this thing over, pull the pan off. Hopefully inside is everything that, well, that he said it was, or would be, or that it should be. Hopefully. Sit rep, again. Oil pan is off. Check the crank and the rods. Those matched up to what the previous owner has said was inside, so that's a plus. And then, after some chiseling, got the oil pan off. I'm pretty sure the previous owner had stock in RTV. Now, if you're new to motoring and vehicles and the such, things you want in your oil pan: oil, and that's about it. Not pieces, fragments of metal. So that's the majority of the shrapnel in the pan. That washer looking guy right there, I mean, that's almost a 1/4 inch thick. I have no clue what this thing is right here. I'm really hoping that that pan was in an engine that blew up and the guy just didn't clean it out real well, because the inside of the pan was pretty nasty. And if I look, I mean, inside the engine here, there's no indication of anything bouncing around or smacking up against there, so that's good. Unfortunately, at minimum, we're gonna have to pull caps off and check bearings. I just don't know. This hurts. This one hurts a lot. You know, I bought a used car, and I mean, granted, you buy a used car, you know you're taking a risk, but everything the guy said it wasn't. That sucks. Unfortunately, I think that's gonna be all for right now. I'm gonna sort this out and try to figure out what the next move is. Appreciate you fine folks swinging by, watching, supporting the videos and the channel. Make sure to like, share, tell your friends, comment below. Till next time, my name's Slipper. Thanks for stopping by my garage.